In C sharp, the performance between the find and FirstOrDefault. So there is a question. So which scenario we have to go for the find, which scenario we have to go for the FirstOrDefault, and the what is the advantage with the find function or the FirstOrDefault? We'll see now. So now find. So the find method. So how you will use find method when there is a list of collection like this? List numbers equals to new list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have the elements like this. So when I want to find a particular element where x equals to 3 or x is greater than 3, I want to find those elements. This particular scenario. So this is designed for collection with direct access by index or key, like arrays or list implementing with ilist. It retrieves an element based on a specific condition. So use case when we have to go for the find. So when you have a collection of objects and want to retrieve an object based on a unique identifier, this particular scenario, we can go for the find. And FirstOrDefault. So when you want to find the first item that meets certain condition in a collection, or suppose you have a list of elements and want to find the first employee in the sale department. For example, I have an employee list. In that, there is a department. So I want to fetch based on the department equals to sale. So now, what is the summary? Now, find suitable for list or arrays with direct index or key access. Okay. Or efficient for retrieving an item by a specific identifier. And here I want to add one more case. So the find method is quickly retrieve an entity by its primary key. So find based on primary key, it retrieves an entity. So the entity is already loaded in the context. So for example, I'm using a DB context. So that particular time, it does not query the database. So this is important. So when I have already data loaded in the context, DB context, it doesn't query the database since it find from the cache, DB context cache. So the data is already retrieved from the database. So it no need to fetch from the database. So whereas FirstOrDefault, so how it is working? Fine. So it is checking in memory cache, the DB context. So already retrieved from the database. So without querying the database, without querying the database, it will fetch from the in memory cache. That is, that's how it is faster because uh, it is not fetching from the database by its primary key, it is fetching from the cache so that this will be faster in this particular case. So now how the FirstOrDefault will work? FirstOrDefault works with link queue and any enumerable. So how this is working? So for example, if there is a condition given for the FirstOrDefault, what will happen? It will execute a link queue query to find the first entity that matches the specified condition. So and it always queries the database. So even though if already DB context is cached, even though DB context is cached, so but also it will go and query from the database. So now performance wise, First default is slower than find because if entity already tracked in the context, because it queries from the database every time regardless of the cache. So that's how the first default will be slower in this particular case. Now scenario, if entity is tracked in memory, so find will be faster because it retrieves from the cache. So first default slower because it will retrieve from the database. For example, entity is not tracked, means it's not in memory. So by querying the list element, so we can go for the find. And if I want to do some link view operations, this particular scenario, we can go for the first default. For example, ideal for getting first item that matches the condition, or default if no matches exist. So if you see what is the conclusion, performance list, when I'm going with a list, find typically marginally faster when working with a list due to direct access. So first default, we have the flexibility of a border application across different collection types integrated seamlessly with link queries. So choose find for list specific. Performance critical scenarios, go for find. And first default for more general link based operations, we can go for the star default. So what is the recommendation? Use find when you are working with the primary key lookups. So use first default for more flexible querying scenarios and when entity not have been loaded into DB context. So this particular scenario, we can go with this. So choose when to use what.